Welcome back to Chat Like a Native, the podcast that helps you sound more natural in English.
Yeah, we're helping you sound more like a native speaker.
And today we're tackling something I think a lot of our listeners struggle with, politeness and directness. How to balance those two.
A tricky one.
Because you want to be polite and you don't want to offend anyone.
Yeah, but you also want to get your message across.
Exactly.
So you got to be direct sometimes, too.
Yeah. And I think a lot of times, especially non-native speakers, tend to overuse sorry.
Oh, absolutely. It's like a reflex, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like, oh, sorry.
It is. It's understandable, though, you know.
Oh, yeah.
Coming from a different culture, you want to be polite. You don't want to offend anyone.
Yeah.
But in English, over-apologizing can actually have the opposite effect.
Totally.
It can make you sound less confident.
It really does, especially in like professional settings or something like that.
Yeah, you want to be taken seriously.
Yeah.
But if you're constantly saying sorry, it's like you're undermining yourself before you even start.
Totally.
You kind of diminish your own ideas.
Exactly.
So yeah, over-apologizing, it's a big no-no. But the thing is, politeness in English is not just about saying sorry all the time.
Okay.
It's about using the right language strategically.
So what can people do instead of always apologizing?
Well, there are a few things. One technique is to use what we call softeners.
Well, softeners.
Yes, softeners.
Okay.
These are words or phrases that make what you're saying sound more polite.
Oh, okay.
So, for instance, instead of saying, send me the report, you could say, could you please send me the report?
Oh, okay.
You see how that little could you please just softens it, makes it more polite?
Yeah.
Without losing the meaning, you're still asking for the report.
Right. So it's like being direct, but like in a polite way.
Exactly. It's all about finding that balance.
I see. Yeah. But when is it okay to say sorry? Like if you bump into someone on the street or what?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. For simple things like that, a quick sorry is perfectly fine.
Yeah.
It's just acknowledging a minor mishap. You know you've done something a little bit wrong. But when it comes to more, I guess, complex situations, especially in a professional setting, you really want to choose your words carefully.
Okay. So give me an example then. Let's say like you're in a meeting and you want to suggest a different approach to a project. Would you start by saying, I'm sorry, but...
Definitely not.
Okay.
Starting with an apology in that situation makes you sound unsure of yourself.
Oh, okay.
It weakens your position. Instead of saying, I'm sorry, but I think we should try this, you could say something like, I have a thought about this. What if we considered this alternative?
Oh, that sounds much better.
Right. It's direct. It's assertive.
Yeah.
But it's still respectful.
Okay. So it's not that we should never apologize.
No, not at all.
It's more about like being aware of when it's appropriate and when it's better to use a different phrase.
Exactly. Think of it like this. You have all these different tools in your language toolbox. Apologies are one tool.
Yeah.
But there are other tools that can be more effective in certain situations.
I like that.
It's about picking the right tool for the job.
So we're learning to be more strategic with our language.
Exactly. And the more you practice, the better you'll get at it. You'll start to sound more natural, more like a native speaker.
Because native speakers just naturally know which tool to use, I guess.
Yeah, they've been doing it their whole lives.
Yeah, and I think that's what makes it hard for non-native speakers.
Absolutely. It's, like you said, it's a skill.
Yeah.
But it's definitely a skill that can be learned.
Okay. So it's like we're learning to fine-tune our communication skills.
Yeah, you could say that.
We're becoming more aware of those subtle nuances that can make a big difference.
Exactly. It's like you're unlocking a secret code to sounding more natural in English.
I love that analogy.
It is a bit like a code, isn't it?
Yeah.
All these little rules and exceptions.
Yeah. But once you crack the code, it's like, aha, now I get it.
And the best part is, once you start paying attention to these things, you'll notice them everywhere.
Oh, yeah.
You'll hear them in movies and songs and everyday conversations.
It's true. You start to pick up on those patterns.
Yeah, it's like a whole new world opens up. But remember, fluency isn't just about speaking perfectly.
Right.
It's about communicating effectively.
Okay, say.
And that means understanding the culture behind the language.
So we need to be aware of the cultural context.
Absolutely. And that's one of the things that can make English tricky.
Okay.
Because what might be considered perfectly polite in one situation could be seen as rude in another.
Oh, so there's no, like, one-size-fits-all approach.
Not really. It depends on who you're talking to, the relationship you have with them, the setting, all sorts of things.
Okay, so how do we navigate all of that?
Yeah.
Like, how do we know when to be more polite or more direct?
Well, that's what we're going to dive into next.
Okay, I'm ready. Let's get specific.
Let's imagine some different situations.
Okay. And see how we can use this idea of politeness versus directness.
Sounds good.
So first, let's think about those times when politeness is super important.
Right.
Like, if you're at work and you need to ask a colleague for help on a project, you wouldn't just blurt out, "Hey, can you fix this?"
No, definitely not.
Right. That sounds a bit rude.
Yeah, too direct.
Instead, you could try something like, "Would you mind taking a look at this when you have a moment? I'd really appreciate your input."
Okay, I see. So it's about phrasing it as more of a question.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And using those polite phrases like, "Would you mind?" or "Could you possibly?" It shows that you respect their time.
Right.
And also gives them a chance to say no if they're really busy.
That's important.
You don't want to put them on the spot.
No, definitely not.
And another situation where politeness is key is giving feedback, especially if it's constructive criticism.
That can be tricky.
It is. You want to be honest, but you don't want to offend anyone.
Yeah, got to be careful. Right. So instead of saying, "This report is full of errors," you could say something like, "I noticed a few things in the report that we might want to revisit. Could we discuss them?"
Okay, yeah, that's much softer.
It is, right. It acknowledges the problem,
Yeah.
but it doesn't make the other person feel attacked.
Right, it's more like a suggestion.
Exactly. And let's not forget about expressing gratitude.
Oh, yes, that's important.
It is. And a simple thank you is great,
Yeah.
but you can make it even better by adding a personal touch.
Okay, how do you do that?
So instead of just saying, "Thanks for the email,"
Mm-hmm.
you could say, "Thanks so much for sending that over. It was really helpful."
Ah, I see. So you're being more specific.
Exactly. You're showing that you really appreciate their effort.
That makes sense.
It's those little things that can really strengthen your relationship.
Yeah, it's about building those connections.
It is. And speaking of relationships, politeness is especially crucial when you're meeting someone for the first time.
Oh, yeah, first impressions are everything.
They really are. You want to come across as friendly and approachable.
Definitely.
So instead of just saying hi at a networking event or something, you could try something like, "It's a pleasure to meet you. I'm really interested in hearing more about your work."
Okay, so you're engaging with them more.
Exactly. It shows genuine interest.
Right.
And it starts a conversation.
It's not just like a quick hello and goodbye.
Right. Now, on the flip side, there are times when being more direct is the way to go.
Okay, so let's talk about that. When would we want to be more direct?
Well, one example is when you're giving instructions at work.
Okay, yeah.
Especially if it's something important. You want to be clear and concise.
Right, there's no room for confusion.
Exactly. So instead of saying, "Maybe you could look into this," you could be more specific and say, "Please review this document and let me know your feedback by Friday."
Okay, so you're setting clear expectations.
Exactly. There's no ambiguity there.
No, it's very straightforward.
And another time when directness is helpful is when you're expressing your own opinions.
Wow.
It's fine to disagree with someone,
Yeah.
but instead of hedging and saying things like, "I'm not sure, but maybe," just own your perspective.
Okay.
You could say something like, "I understand your point, but I think we should consider this alternative approach."
Oh, I like that. You're being assertive.
Exactly. You're stating your viewpoint confidently.
But you're still respecting the other person's opinion.
Right. It's about finding that balance again.
Yeah.
And then, of course, there are those time-sensitive requests.
Oh, yeah, when you need something urgently.
Exactly. In those situations, directness is essential.
Okay.
So instead of saying, "Would it be possible to get this done sometime soon?" Be specific. Say something like, "I need this finalized by tomorrow morning. Can we prioritize it?"
Oh, yeah, much better.
Right. It gets the point across.
This is wondering what you mean.
Exactly. And finally, let's talk about setting boundaries. Oh, yes, that's important.
It is, both in your personal life and at work. Direct communication is key here.
Okay.
So instead of vaguely saying, "I'm kind of busy,"
Yeah.
be upfront. Say something like, "I can't take on any more projects right now, but I'm happy to discuss it further next week."
Oh, I see. So you're being clear, but also leaving the door open.
Exactly. It's about being assertive.
But also respectful.
Right. Now, those are just a few examples
Yeah.
of when you might lean towards politeness or directness.
Okay, but how do we actually put this into practice? Like, are there any practical tips we can use in everyday conversations to find that sweet spot? So many things to think about. It does feel like a balancing act.
It is. But like any skill, it gets easier with practice.
So what can we do to get better at this in our everyday conversations?
Well, one helpful tip is to take a moment to think before you speak.
Okay.
Really consider who you're talking to,
Yeah.
what the situation is,
Mm-hmm.
and what you're trying to achieve.
So it's about being more mindful. Exactly. It helps you choose the right tone, the right level of directness.
Okay, that makes sense. And are there any specific phrases or techniques we could use?
Absolutely. One thing I recommend is focusing on positive language.
Okay.
So, for example, instead of saying, I'm sorry for the delay, you could say, thank you for your patience.
Well, that's nice. It shifts the focus, doesn't it?
It does. It takes the emphasis off the apology and makes it more positive.
That's a good one. I'm going to try to remember that.
And here's another tip that might seem obvious, but it's super important. Get to your point quickly.
Okay.
Don't beat around the bush.
Right.
Don't start with a bunch of apologies or fillers.
Yeah.
Just state your purpose clearly.
And then you can add those polite touches where appropriate.
Exactly. It shows confidence.
Oh, I see. It's like, here's what I need kind of thing.
Exactly. But remember, communication is a two-way street.
Right.
So practice active listening, too.
Oh, yeah, that's important.
Pay attention to what the other person is saying, their tone of voice, their body language.
Okay.
All those cues can give you hints about how direct you can be.
So it's about being adaptable.
It is. And of course, one of the best ways to learn is to observe native speakers.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Pay attention to how they use language in different situations.
Mm-hmm.
Watch movies, listen to podcasts.
Yeah.
You can even just eavesdrop on conversations.
Okay.
See how people interact in real life.
So it's like immersing yourself in the language.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to ask for feedback.
Feedback is so important.
It is. Find a language partner or a friend.
Yeah.
Someone who can give you honest opinions about your English.
Right. Someone who can tell you where you can improve.
Exactly. But remember, learning a language takes time.
Yeah.
Be patient with yourself.
Don't get discouraged.
Exactly. Celebrate the small victories.
I like that.
Every conversation, every interaction is a chance to learn and grow.
And I think that's a great message to end on.
I agree.
Don't be afraid to make mistakes.
It's all part of the process.
Exactly. Well, thanks for all the great advice.
You're very welcome.
This has been another episode of Chat Like a Native.
We hope you found it helpful.
Don't forget to subscribe for more tips on how to sound more natural and confident in English.
And keep practicing.
See you next time.